All right, in the next few minutes, we're going to dive into a simple mental trick that can genuinely help you outlearn 99% of people, and you don't even have to work any harder. Let's get right into it. It's a feeling we all know too well, right? You're staring at a page, your eyes are moving, but your brain is, well, it's somewhere else entirely. Thinking about dinner, that email you forgot to send, anything but the words in front of you. And at the end, you've retained nothing. And it's so easy to just think, man, I guess I'm just bad at learning. But here's the actual truth. The problem isn't you. It's not your intelligence. The real issue is that our internal radar, the part of our brain that's supposed to be monitoring our focus, is basically switched off. The great news? You can totally train it to be laser focused. And that brings us to the star of the show today, what I call the brain mirror. This is the master skill that really separates the frustrated learners from the truly effective ones.
Now, in the world of science, this has a much fancier name, metacognition. I know, it sounds a little intimidating, but don't let the word fool you. All it means is thinking about your thinking. It's the ability to kind of step outside your own head for a second and just observe what's going on in there.
Let's break it down to make it super simple. Normal thinking, that's just doing the task. Solving 5 plus 5. But brain mirror thinking, that's taking it one step further. It's noticing how you solved it. When you're reading, it's not just seeing the words. It's realizing the exact moment you start to get bored or confused. See the difference? One is being a passenger, the other's grabbing the steering wheel. So to really understand why this brain mirror is such a superpower, we first have to talk about why we get stuck. Why does learning something new sometimes feel like you're just hitting a brick wall over and over again? This quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. Learning how to learn is so tricky because the whole process is invisible. Think about it. If you're learning golf and you slice the ball into the woods, you get instant physical feedback. But when your thinking goes off the rails, there's nothing to point at. You can't see the mistake. You just feel stuck. And that feeling of being stuck, it often comes from what we can call a mental rut. It's this deep subconscious pattern of thinking that can totally sabotage our learning, and most of the time, we don't even know it's happening. Here's how it works. When we're kids, our brains are like Play-Doh, super flexible, able to learn anything. But as we get older, we start carving these fixed pathways, these mental ruts to handle problems we see all the time. Now, these crystallized patterns are great for stuff we already know, but they create a hard ceiling when we face something new. So a new idea doesn't fit into our old ruts, and what do? We just give up and say, oh, I'm just not a math person. But that's not true. You're just trying to drive a truck down a path that was built for a bicycle. Okay. So how do we get out of these ruts? How do we make our invisible thinking visible? Well, this brings us to the solution, a super simple exercise to build up that internal radar. First, you have to get this. There are really only 2 states of learning. On one side, you've got the passive off state. This is autopilot. You're just looking at words. It feels easy, it's comfortable, but you are learning almost nothing. On the other side is the active on state. This is when your brain feels a little sweaty. It feels hard because you're actually doing the work, asking questions, connecting ideas. This is where all the growth happens. So here is your mission. The next time you sit down to learn anything, grab a piece of paper and draw this T-chart. Your only goal is to try and stay in that on column. But the very second you catch yourself drifting into that off state, zoning out, just make a little mark on that side of the paper. Now, this is crucial. Do not get frustrated with yourself. The goal here isn't perfection. It's just to notice. And then, to snap yourself back, you ask one simple, powerful question. How would I explain this to a 5-year-old? Bam! That forces your brain right back into the on state. Now, I know this sounds almost too simple, but I promise you it is an absolute game changer. Why? Because it forces you to become aware of the single most important ingredient for learning anything: real, honest-to-goodness mental effort. So why is being aware so critical? Because this number, which is honestly kind of shocking, represents something pretty wild for most people. Yeah, that's about how much time most people spend in that totally useless, passive, off state when they think they're studying. Their eyes are on the page, but their brain is basically asleep at the wheel. That's why you can study for hours and feel like you've wasted your time. By building this radar, you start to take back all those lost hours. I absolutely love this analogy because it is perfect. Learning is no different from going to the gym. You don't build muscle by just looking at the dumbbells, right? You build them by actually lifting them, by feeling that strain. If your brain isn't sweating, if you're not feeling that cognitive load, you are not growing. That T-chart is your personal trainer for your mind. It makes sure you're actually lifting the weight, not just staring at it. So let's wrap all this up with a very clear, very actionable challenge. This isn't just some interesting theory. It's a practice you can literally start the second this is over. Here is your mission, if you choose to accept it. Tomorrow, when you sit down to work or study, draw that T-chart. Watch your own mind like a hawk, and every time you feel yourself drifting into that passive off state, you just gently pull yourself back with that one magic question. What did I just learn, in my own words? Because in the end, that's really what it all comes down to. The secret to learning faster isn't about more hours, more highlighting, or more coffee. It's about shifting your focus from just doing the work to watching how you do the work. The only question left is, are you ready to make that shift?